Thanksgiving had always been Linda's stage. Her dining room was arranged like a performance every year, the same polished silverware, the same centerpiece, the same seat at the head of the table where she could see everyone at once. She liked being the one who hosted, who carved the turkey, who decided when people spoke and when they laughed. I knew the rhythm of it by now. I had married her son, Daniel, 6 years earlier. For most of those 6 years, there had been one quiet topic floating through the family like smoke: children. No one said it directly at first. It came in soft comments. You too will understand once you have a little one. Your sister-in-law was pregnant by your second anniversary. You'll see how life changes. Daniel would squeeze my hand under the table when those things were said. A silent apology. I never corrected anyone. The truth was something we had agreed to keep private. At first, it felt like loyalty. Over time, it started to feel like a burden I was carrying alone. That Thanksgiving afternoon, the house was loud with cousins and siblings. Football murmured from the living room television. Someone had already opened wine before dinner. When Linda called everyone to the table, people slid into their seats like they always did. I sat beside Daniel. Across from us was his younger brother and his wife, their toddler strapped into a high chair. Linda disappeared briefly into the kitchen. When she returned, she carried a stack of plates, white porcelain for most of the table. She set them down one by one. Then she stopped behind my chair. I noticed the color first, bright pink. When she placed it in front of me, I saw the cartoon animals printed across it, a children's plate, the kind you buy for a toddler. A rabbit, a smiling sun, little clouds. The room went still in that subtle way families do when something uncomfortable happens. Linda rested her hand on the back of my chair. Her voice was light, almost playful. "Well," she said, "loud enough for everyone. Since you can't give my son kids, you might as well eat like one." A few people laughed. Not real laughter. The nervous kind people use when they don't know where to look. Daniel didn't move. I felt every eye at the table flick toward me. It would have been easy to react the way Linda expected. Cry, argue, leave in humiliation. For a moment, something heavy pressed inside my chest. 6 years. 6 years of hearing the same assumption repeated in polite ways. 6 years of smiling and letting people believe the problem was me. I picked up the small fork beside the plate and turned it slowly between my fingers. The cartoon rabbit stared up at me. Then I set the fork down. I stood. The chair legs made a soft scraping sound against the floor. Everyone watched as I reached for my purse on the back of the chair. Linda's smile widened slightly, like she had predicted exactly this reaction. But I wasn't reaching for my coat. I opened the purse calmly and pulled out a thin folder. It had been sitting there for weeks. "Actually, Linda," I said quietly, "I have something to show everyone about why your son doesn't have kids yet." The room tightened. Linda blinked, still smiling, but the expression looked different now. Confused. I slid the papers from the folder and placed them gently on the tablecloth. Medical documents, test results, doctor's notes. I didn't push them toward anyone dramatically. I simply turned them so they faced the center of the table. "I didn't bring these tonight to embarrass anyone," I said. My voice surprised me with how steady it sounded. "I brought them because I think I'm done carrying a story that isn't mine." Daniel stared at the table. His hands were folded together so tightly the knuckles had turned pale. Linda leaned forward slightly. "What is this supposed to be?" she asked. I answered simply, "They're Daniel's fertility reports." Silence spread across the room in a way I had never heard before. Not awkward silence. Heavy silence, the kind where people suddenly understand something they hadn't considered. Linda looked at her son. Daniel still didn't move. The doctor's notes were clear. Even to someone without medical training, low sperm count, long-term fertility complications, treatment discussions. The date on the earliest test was 4 years ago. I spoke again softer. "We found out together," I said, "and we decided to keep it private." No one interrupted. For years, I continued. People assumed I was the reason we didn't have children. I never corrected them, because I thought protecting Daniel mattered more than defending myself. Daniel finally lifted his head. His eyes looked tired, not angry, just tired. Linda's mouth opened slightly, then closed again. The authority she carried so easily in that room seemed to have slipped somewhere between the pages on the table. "I'm not ashamed of this," I said. Infertility isn't shameful, but blaming the wrong person for it is. No one laughed now. Even the football noise from the other room felt distant. I picked up the pink cartoon plate. For a moment, I looked at the little rabbit printed on it. Then I set it gently beside the papers. "I didn't come tonight to fight," I said. My coat was already draped over the back of the chair. I slipped my arms into it. Daniel looked like he wanted to say something, but he didn't. Maybe he couldn't. Or maybe he was still deciding whether silence had protected him or cost him something. "I hope dinner is good," I said quietly to the table. No one stopped me when I walked toward the front door. Outside, the November air felt sharp and cold against my face. Behind me, the house was still full of people, still full of food. But for the first time in years, the story about why we didn't have children no longer belonged entirely to me. And the quiet that followed felt heavier for everyone else than it did for me.